Three, two, one. You may now begin the meeting. Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the September 10th, 2025 meeting of the Housing Opportunities Commission of Montgomery County. I'm very pleased to chair the commission and I can introduce my fellow commissioners present with us. To my immediate left is Jeffrey Merkowitz, is our vice chair, and to his left, Robin Solomon, chair pro tem. Immediate right, Paul Weech, commissioner, and Azola Shaw, commissioner. Our two of our commissioners will not be present today. One's on vacation and one is going through some personal matters dealing with their health. So they are excused. With that, I will proceed with our agenda. Are there any amendments or changes to the agenda that was presented to you all as commissioners? And now we'll proceed. The first order of business that we have under information exchanges for a community forum. I understand from staff that we have 3 persons who have asked to make a presentation to the commission today. 2 of them I think are going to be present in person and 1 is going to be online. Who is the first person that's going to appear?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I understand there is a customer by the name of Miss Snowden. You could come up to the yeah. And hold on 1 second. Chair Priest, if you want to just share the instructions in terms of how long each speaker has an opportunity to address the commission.
Yeah, pursuant to the established rules for participation in the community forum, each speaker gets opportunity for 3 minutes to make their presentation. The commissioners can then ask any questions and then we'll proceed with the next speaker.
Indicate a hardship complaint regarding my household's ongoing displacement, which began on August 31st, 2025. This began when I received a notification from a former landlord and also an apartment advising that HOC denied the rent increase. Shortly after, I received a legal notice from their attorney's office stating that I am to be out of the unit no later than August 31st, 2025 at midnight, and that notice of eviction will be entered should I fail to do so. I began my housing search and completed the notice of vacate form, having all parties signed before submitting to the HOC portal. In the month of July, I applied for an apartment in Parksburg, Maryland, and was approved. I was given the inspection availability of August 28th, which had me extremely nervous because it was close to a holiday and well within the HOC's hours of operation. I began reaching out via emails from many members of HOC staff in an effort to expedite my inspection so I would not be without housing. They made visits to the East Park office and Kensington office in an effort to assist with my proposed inspection date. Now today is Wednesday, September 10th, and this displacement has created a serious hardship for my household, including financial strain, extended storage costs, temporary lodging costs, and lost wages from work. Emotional and physical stress as well, with uncertainty, overcrowded conditions, and health concerns about the county. I respectfully request the board's assistance in addressing this matter. Specifically, I'm asking to be reimbursed for the expenses I've suffered in this situation. I brought receipts as exhibits from my moving expenses as well as screenshots of the portal. Household displacement has been deeply challenging, and I'm seeking the board's understanding and comprehension. I thank you for your time and consideration for this matter.
Thank you very much, Ms. Snowden. What is your current situation right now? Have you moved into a new unit? Okay. Any questions, members of the commission? I want to thank you for coming and presenting this to our attention. I know that members of the staff are working with you in this matter, and we'll determine how to proceed relative to your request that you've made to us related to any reimbursements. So we will follow with the staff on that matter. Thank you very much for showing up today. Next person.
Mr. Chair, there's an individual by the name of, and I'm hopeful I don't mispronounce the last name, Tazekli. Please come on up.
Turn off the camera on this. 3 minutes. Yeah, so I thank you, HOCMC and the committee. With my 3 minutes, I do want to take some time to have a moment of silence for the 25th anniversary of 9/11, 24th anniversary rather. So I'm here representing my younger brother, who has multiple disabilities, autism. He's autistic and he has other mental capacity issues. We had a really heartache that happened to our family recently, and it's been extremely difficult to try to manage the day-to-day things for him. We reached out to the HOCMC. I want to say this time last year, and President Chelsea knows of our situation. Ombudsman Hodge as well. And essentially, we've been on the waiting list for since that time. We've reached out to another agency, I think Evermind in Bethesda. And to be honest, they haven't really been too helpful. There's a lot of miscommunication. There's not really a clear pathway or roadmap in terms of where we stand, or perhaps how we can come to some sort of solution on this. It just seems as though, and perhaps that's just by design, I'm not quite sure, but it seems as though that there needs to be some sort of fixing on that end. As I said, I reached out to many different folks, President Andrews, Bonnie, Charlotte Taylor, Charles Polson, Kimball, I think she retired. Yeah, I mean, again, there's just been a lack of communication and understanding of essentially the COC and them offering the help that they should be helping with. I also want to echo some of the sentiments that Jeff Merkowitz mentioned. I think it was the April 2025 meeting, in terms of, I think it was the tail end of that meeting where you were mentioning the COC, where we should be putting in more vouchers for that program, especially for folks that are very vulnerable, don't really understand the system. You need someone to really fight. They need someone to really fight for them to really get the support that they need. So I know my time is closing down. The ask. So essentially, the ask is very clear. I mean, I would like for someone to review the case, give an update, and also give some sort of interim solution, so that folks in that spectrum aren't just left in limbo. And perhaps if there can be some sort of referral to whether it be HOCMC owned properties for himself, or a quicker route to the SV, the stability voucher. And yeah, that's all I can ask for. Thank you.
Sir, without question. Yeah. First of all, thank you for coming. And we know you've been vigilant about trying to make a case for your brother. We know we're not unmindful of that. And the program, I mean, we just recently, I think, had approval for stability vouchers that would help persons similar to your brother who may be in a continuum of care type of environment. And we don't directly award, we may award them, but the referral comes from HHS for those types of vouchers. And have you been referred to HHS for assistance in getting on certified by them, that they would then provide that information to us, and then we would issue one of these vouchers?
So I think your comments just speaks to the whole the situation. There's just so much, I guess, miscommunication between, who offers the vouchers? Is it HHS? Is it Charlotte Taylor at TOC? Is it HOCMC? Where do you stand? Where are you in coordinated entry on the CES list? There's just so many things that one can't really understand how to compute. You can't really understand how this thing works. And again, maybe that's by design, but again, it's doing a disservice to a lot of people, especially those that are disabled. So I guess to answer your question, from what I understand, for what I hear, the case manager for him mentioned that it should be coming from HOCMC, and if not, there are HOCMC properties. Obviously, I think there's 11,000 properties. I think you guys give 7,000 vouchers every year. I was just looking at the stats in the break room. So yeah, that, I mean, essentially either or, whether it would be a HOCMC owned property for him and his care, or a private voucher. And I know that it runs the gamut, whether it be an SV, whether it be, I know there's tons of different vouchers on there. So
Yeah. I know it can be sometimes can be complex. The average person to understand it, even those of us who sit here every day, every once a month and do this, it is, you have to know how to get through the system. But it is under the normal housing choice voucher program, there's a waiting list. It's a long waiting list. And under what you're doing is, in this case, you're going through HHS Continuum of Care program, which takes you into these other class of vouchers that they have to then provide the information to us, and then we issue the voucher, okay? So it would be HHS would have to be the conduit through their continuum of care that makes the referral to us. So that should be where you're working directly with them to make sure, because otherwise you would be caught up in this.
Respectfully, Priest, with the greatest respect, there's just no communication. Emails don't get responded to. You go to the office on 1331. And I'm not here to get anybody in trouble, but again, there has to be some sort of checks and balances. There has to be some kind of, questioning of the status quo, if you will, because, what it's essentially going to do is it's going to put more and more folks that are disabled lower and lower on the list. I don't know what who the urgent folks are on the list, who's classed higher than others. But I mean, I think it's a pretty clear cut case for those that are disabled, and not only for my brother, but there's also other people that I know in Montgomery County. So I think in terms of next steps, maybe an action item could be, because essentially you guys do receive the referral from HHS. Perhaps there can be a direct to consumer or direct to the HOC, where you can see the circumstances and make the call yourself. Because it just seems as though that this cog in the wheel, whether it be essentially HHS, is slowing up the process. That affects, again, mental health. It affects, lifespan for many different folks, many different families that are dealing with it. So.
Well, let me just say to you, I know that our staff is aware of your circumstances, and in fact has been in contact with HHS, Continuum Care. As soon as they have, in fact, provided the information to us, certifying that you are eligible to receive your brother, we will, in fact, expedite that happening, because all those people who are in that same protected class of people are deserving of and require that kind of assistance, so we understand that. So our staff will continue to work with you and with HHS to try to see if we can expedite getting some explanation about where you are or what the process will be going forward.
You offer some sort of time frame, because again, I have great respect for the office, but again, those are those same general statements that I've been receiving. We'll get back to you. There's no specific tailored response to specific scenarios and specific circumstances. Well, so all I ask is for a time frame and more so like a roadmap that we can work towards together, and become stewards of the community to help the community. I
can appreciate that. I'm not able to give that to you at this point in time now, but the staff will continue to work with you. We get a regular report, the commission, on any persons who appear at our community forum. We get a report on what the status of that is. So we will know what's going on with you the time that we will meet again in our next meeting in October. Before that time, we will know where you are. If there's any issue, we continue to get back with our staff. So I want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have anyone else?
Yes, Commissioner Chair Priest, I do believe that there is an individual who's called in. Are they online, team? Did not join. Okay. At this moment, there are no additional speakers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. And I don't think we have any report from the advisory board, because I don't think they have met yet this month, have they?
That is true. However, I have been advised that the president would like a moment when he arrives to give a preview of what they will be focused on this year. And I received a note of that, and he will likely arrive around 5 p.m. So we can pause in the agenda to allow for a few moments at
Okay.
that time.
With that, I'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is reports from our president.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission and the HOC team, as well as members of the public. I am very excited to share out our first update as it pertains to how we've been able to advance our 5-year strategic plan. You will see in today's presentation, I'm joined with Vice President of Government Affairs, Ken Silverman. We will be providing an overview of what has been the overall environment, some of the economic and other indicators that we're tracking as we think about how we strategically continue to advance our plan. And you will hear updates in terms of what we have accomplished to date, as well as what's ongoing as we enter and continue FY26. As a whole, I would just like to uplift and acknowledge the entire team who has embraced this strategic plan in day-to-day operations, far beyond a dashboard, far beyond the glossy report that we have provided. We have really taken our strategic plan to heart and have infused it throughout our performance goals, throughout our objectives, throughout our core values, and how we have engaged with both our staff and our members of our constituents and our customers. And so holistically, I believe that we have successfully, as a commission, advanced a strategic plan that's more than just, as we were fearful of most strategic plans, being a document that's on a shelf. This is a living, breathing, actionable plan that we are delivering on. And I just want to acknowledge that. Next slide. I am going to turn it over for the first few slides to Mr. Silverman to walk through the economic and, again, some of the county data that we have available to us in this moment. And once he completes his updates, he will turn it back over to me so that I can give more insight in terms of our specific plan and how we've been able to advance it.
Thank you so much, President Andrews. And just want to, again, thank President Andrews for your leadership, Karine, Travis McIntyre on my team, and Tia and her whole team in Legislative and Public Affairs, who really, make this look presentable and easy to read and follow. And then, all the folks that have been contributing to providing the data and the actions and the work. We wanted to start, as President Andrews said, with sort of going back and looking at some of the external metrics. Some of these we kind of looked at when we were developing the plan. We do have some of these reflected on the dashboard as well. And I'm going to highlight a couple changes to the sort of sources we're looking at for a couple of those. But we did just want to sort of pull in a few things because obviously we know most of this is focused on the things that are in our control and what we plan to do and what we've succeeded in doing in FY25. But, there's a lot of things that are not in our direct control that, impact the environment we operate in and the outcomes that our customers face. This is just one of the older maps of Montgomery County that I've been able to find. And, just highlighting 2026 is, in addition to being the 250th anniversary of our country, also the 250th anniversary of Montgomery County, which was created in 1776. If you go to the next slide, please. So kind of in keeping with the, history theme, just wanted to highlight that Montgomery Planning has prepared this, they call a story map, that shows how the county's residential development evolved from 1940 to 2024. So the map you see here shows, where we have single family detached only zoning, and then, sort of those isolated areas where we have multifamily or townhomes allowed. And if you go to the link on this slide, they show how that evolved, which areas of the county developed, over the last 100 years or so. And I would just note, this does not include Rockville or Gaithersburg that have, separate planning. Next slide, please. Also wanted to highlight, since we developed our sort of initial strategic plan, the Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, together with Montgomery Planning, has developed a set of quarterly indicators that they report to the council on the sort of economic development or economic health of the county. So these are the indicators in their most recent report for Q1, and you can kind of see pretty much everything is up except for new multifamily units permitted. And I'll go into sort of some more detail on a number of those factors, but this is something that we can track every quarter. And want to highlight, I think one of the changes we'd like to make for FY26 is some of these external metrics that we have been pulling directly from Bureau of Labor Statistics sources like the American Community Survey. We're finding we're still showing like 2023 data on a number of those metrics. And so, we'd like to switch to use this source, which is published quarterly for things like unemployment rate and others. They're still pulling from that, some of those similar sources, but will allow us to keep that updated a little more frequently. And if you could go to the next slide, please. So focusing on unemployment rate as a sort of proxy for the health of our economy, we wanted to pull this out a little more recently. So the number you saw on the last slide was through March of 2025. This graph goes through August. And just a couple quick highlights. Our unemployment rate today is about where it was in 2015. So sort of halfway through the recovery from the Great Recession. Definitely not near the sort of 5% recession area, but you can see the trend is not great. I would also highlight, if you really sort of squint at the end there, we are approaching, our whole region, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Virginia together are approaching, sort of crossing over the average unemployment rate for the United States as a whole, which is that dashed blue line. And if you look back, we really have basically never been above the average national unemployment rate. So that would sort of signal I think a pretty significant shift in regional economics that is maybe not separate from the kind of national story. Next slide, please. Focusing a little bit more specifically on the housing market, these are from the same set of quarterly indicators that planning puts together. You can see for multifamily, our vacancy rate is slightly up, and we're now at 7% countywide, which is maybe not evenly distributed across the county, but not extraordinarily tight. And there's been little rent increase over the last year. Looking at for sale, however, prices continue to rise, quite steeply. We're now over $1 million for the average price of an attached single family home, and we're coming up on $500,000 for the average sale price of over $1 million for a detached home, and coming up on $500,000 for an attached. We did have listings up, so like a more active market, it seems, this year compared to last, but doesn't seem to translate to less upward price pressure. Next slide, please. We wanted to focus, so the next few slides kind of focus in on something that I know has been a big topic of discussion, which is how we're doing on developing more homes in the county. So these graphs are from the Housing Indicator Tool, which is prepared by Housing and the Regional Affordable Housing Organization. These are regional numbers on this slide, and you can see, they prepare two sets of numbers. These go through 2024. Building permits, and then units built, which I understand is essentially a certificate of occupancy, so completions. And so obviously you would have a sort of a 1 to 3 year lag between issuance of a building permit and then completion of construction, at least in multifamily. And overall, we have been about 10% behind the regional goal that the Council of Governments set for the DC region. In 2019, they set a goal based on population estimates for how much housing production we would need, from 2020 through 2030. So, as a region, about 10% behind. If you go to the next slide, please. So this is focused in just on Montgomery County, same slides. And actually, for Montgomery County's portion of that regional goal, we're actually through 2024 about 3% ahead of the goal that we had for us. So we had decent housing production in the first half of the decade here. If you go to the next slide. So this is now same data source focused on building permits, but provided in this quarterly update. And I think this is what has gotten so many folks' attention. You can see that from Q4 of 2024 through the first half of 2025, we've had essentially zero multifamily permits issued in the county. And so you would expect to see a 1 to 3 year, lag before that appears in that units built number. And, obviously, I think there's any number of reasons why that trend would happen, but
like what? I'm curious. An earlier slide had negative permits.
Right.
I don't know what a negative permit is.
Well, certainly there's, I think there's national factors, right? The interest rate's very high. Construction costs have accelerated dramatically. I think there's regional factors.
Some of the material that was sent around, and I appreciate all the data that we've been getting lately. And I don't know if it was one of the articles, but talked about the planning department being a huge slowdown. I'm not going to ask you to comment on how they work, but is there something unique in our county compared to Arlington or Fairfax, or something that's holding people back?
When I ask, Chelsea wants to share.
Right. There are.
Can I phone a friend?
Well, or we can say no comment. What I will just say is, obviously there's a focus on how to expedite the process, and you will see that planning has done a great job of thinking about an expedited strategy, especially for developments that have increased affordability. And I'm certain they are doing a close review of other ways they can streamline their process.
A fair answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, I certainly know planning is, they produce these graphs and are very aware and interested in understanding what's going on and what, Yeah,
I said this when I asked Zach on his last day, is I do work in lots of parts of the country, and it just strikes me that Montgomery County has so few private, nonprofit or for-profit affordable developers. Everywhere there's a competition. That doesn't mean they're all good, but it's just striking. And I don't really know why, or maybe it's just because it's too hard to do anything.
If you go to the next slide, sort of to that point, Commissioner, they did look around the region, and this is a shared story with Alexandria and Prince George's and the city of Rockville. But more broadly, there's many other jurisdictions in the region that haven't seen at least this level of a slowdown. So, I definitely think so. Obviously, HOC, we're doing our part to get some permits on the board. But definitely wanted to highlight this trend, and who knows, maybe next quarter, will be a gangbuster and make up all that volume.
It would be interesting to see HOC's share of each of those, previous graphs that you showed.
We can do that. Next slide, please. So wanted to focus on homelessness and our, these are graphs from a presentation that our partners at HHS provided to the council. That full presentation and the council packet is linked on the slide. Just highlight again, we've seen a large spike, that graph to the left, in our most recent point in time count. And then if you look at the chart in the middle there, again, this seems to be something that's happening, in Montgomery County, not necessarily a regional trend. The regional average was a 1% reduction in homeless individuals in that count. Whereas we had a 32% increase. So, a couple other data points there that show, sort of how HHS is attempting to manage that shift. But definitely something to keep an eye on and potentially, consider as we, move forward with our
Do you think
actions.
there's a correlation between our lack of permits and general real estate activity and the increase in homelessness, or that's not the right conclusion to draw? I saw our executive director Shaker or President Shaker.
I mean, I think, the timing because the permits wouldn't result, right? Like it's
Right.
So I think,
I don't think there's a correlation between the permits and homelessness, but there's certainly a correlation between the lack of available affordable housing and homelessness.
yeah, absolutely. Next slide, please. Oh,
I also just wanted to know if you go back to slide 10 with the different jurisdictions, DC actually dropped. I know this graph makes it look like DC has far more, but comparably, based on percentage wise and based on population wise, DC has dropped as well significantly.
yeah, and obviously these are not, per capita or, sort of adjusted. If you could go to slide 12, please. So also a focus on evictions. Again, this is from our colleagues at HHS. And, this is obviously not HOC's evictions. This is, countywide filings in the court. Very significant increase in filings, not translating to a proportional increase in, actual evictions executed. And part of that is a story that, the courts are still backlogged, coming out of the sort of backlog of filings from COVID. Some of that is obviously folks do, sort of self-evict or, sort of forced to leave, even if there's not an actual eviction filed. Here, maybe there is a correlation to the homelessness increase and definitely another, sort of point to keep an eye on. Next slide, please. So finally, I know, in the context of our one of our previous legislative updates, we had talked about some of the changes to SNAP and Medicaid as well. So did just want to bring in our partners in the Montgomery County Office of Food Resiliency, issued a policy brief with some, estimates of, some clearer statements of what the changes might be in Montgomery County and some estimates of how many folks might be impacted. These are largely Maryland numbers because it's a Maryland-wide program. That's the data they were able to get. I know they're working on, trying to break that down more for Montgomery County, and certainly we'll continue to try to give better picture of, among our customers. But certainly tens of thousands of families in Maryland are likely to have, either reduced or lose their SNAP benefits as a result of that change.
Thank you. Thank you, Ken. I'll move us into.
Before you move into your part of the slides,
Yes.
Just going back for a minute to the question that was asked about what's causing these situations occurring in terms of issuance of permits going down. At the most recent convening that was done, and which our president participated in, on talking about the future of Montgomery County, there was a very active development, both public and private developers who were in that. And things that Dave gave as reasons for why we are seeing what we are seeing right now They blamed a lot of it on rent stabilization. They blamed it on entitlement and permitting process. They talked about zoning and the zoning things that are going on around the whole metropolitan area, DMV, especially the whole thing about the missing middle and all. They talked a lot about that. They talked about the cost of financing right now and interest costs and the and what's going on with that affecting it. They talked about tariffs and how that's affecting it because of cost of materials, impact on labor force availability. And they also talked about environmental costs. Those are just some of the panoply of things that were talked about by the developers. Now, I will say that on the public presenters like Chelsea and the Green Bank, we talked about some of the things that we are still doing in that environment. But for the larger development community, they're the ones who are driving the building permits and all those kind of things. Those are some of the things that are impacting that. So I just want to mention that because I thought that was an interesting discussion. May not always agree with all the points, but that's what they think.
No, absolutely. Moving into just focusing on how we've been able to advance the strategic plan, reminding us all that we have 3 primary objectives that we are advancing. One is to expand affordable housing in Montgomery County. The second is to enhance the lives we touch through supportive services and partnerships. And last but certainly not least, our focus on excelling as a world-class organization. Commissioners, as you know, after launching our strategic plan, we have been reporting on a monthly basis on each of these goals, spotlighting them at each month meeting so that the public can see how we are advancing these goals. Next slide. And move one more slide along. Thank you. Just to give some context in terms of timeline, we started this process back in May of 2023. And that's when we kicked off our strategic planning and really took the time to have very extensive stakeholder engagement as well as commission engagement over many months prior to the approval of the plan that occurred in March 24. We were able to successfully launch our dashboard, the public facing dashboard here summer of last year. And we continued the implementation plan and dashboard was worked on through the summer, and then we launched in the winter. So we are at our first review here this fall, and every September, we will come back to the commission to report out, as well as the monthly meetings. Next slide. Overall, as you can tell, we have been very ambitious in accomplishing our 5-year plan. In fact, we have made 47% of progress within the first year of our plan. And so as we continue to talk through where we are as a team continuing to explore additional tasks that we can add as we move on. We jumped right ahead with this plan in a very ambitious way. I'll walk you through each of the different objectives and how we've been able to accomplish that in the next few slides. But next slide. I do want to highlight, especially for members of the public, that we have a very interactive and clear to and easy to understand dashboard that's available on our website, hocmc.org, under the strategic plan tab. The dashboard actually also received news media awareness in terms of it being a great tool and has had a lot of views since we've launched it. You see close to 2,500 individuals have been taking advantage of and utilizing the dashboard and wonderful feedback from our partners in regards to it. Next slide. As we go through this presentation, I want to just give a quick overview of how our color coding is identifying our different tasks. If it's blue, that means the task was completed. Yellow, that means there's some delay. Ultimately, when we set out our plan, we had ambitious goals of when things would be completed. If it was delayed even a month, we would indicate some delay. Not that the task didn't get done, but that there's some delay in our timing. Red meant that there was some major disruption. And for our yellow and red items, those are items that will continue into this fiscal year and are currently being worked on. Our items that are green are on track, as in purple are upcoming new goals that will be focused on in 26. And of course, there are many items that have longevity throughout the plan. Next slide. The first goal, to expand affordable housing in Montgomery County, has 3 sub goals. We as a commission decided that we should focus on expanding our portfolio of high quality affordable housing, expanding housing supply, which is slightly different. There's a nuance there and we'll talk about it, as well as expanding and optimizing rental assistance. Next slide. As it pertains to our achieving this goal, we have been very ambitious and productive in advancing the expansion of affordable housing. We have 89% progress for the actions that we've identified in our FY25, and we have 32% of tasks that are currently underway for our FY26 actions. Next slide. Looking specifically into the first objective, which was to expand affordable housing, we identified a number of actions. I will just focus in here on the one that obviously says that there's a major disruption. This is a goal that we had identified primarily as a legislative priority for the commission, and due to changes in the political landscape, has not been the focus, and is something that we will look into advancing in the future. But there was the concept that we might be able to create essentially another version of HPF, but focused on mezz debt, and thinking if there could be some federally backed product that helps advance that. As it stands, that doesn't seem to be a concept that might be advantageous in this moment, but is definitely still on our radar. There are 2 other tasks that are on track. We are continuing to explore capacity building for various developers, as well as maintaining and developing new relationships with capital funding sources. And even commissioners are helping us with that goal. So want to acknowledge that.
Chelsea, I was wondering if on the first item, if someone had approached Fannie or Freddie rather than the Treasury, and if that was feasible or can.
I would defer to Ken. There has been discussion around this item. I know that instead of just administration, we also were looking at partnering with our industry associations to also help advocate on behalf of on this particular point. And this has not been a main source of area of focus for our colleagues. And I guess I can turn over to you, Ken.
I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but it just, Treasury seems like it would be not a good use of time, but maybe Fannie and Freddie.
This was something that there was quite a bit of, not that we were heavily involved in, but there was quite a bit of national conversation with the previous director of the Federal Housing Finance Agency, in relation to Fannie and Freddie in particular, particularly Fannie, that they might be able to do something like this without a change in their statutory authority. And so that's definitely something that, I think we're still hopeful. Maybe if there's even in a privatization or something, but
I heard the title of the agency you're speaking of. So we don't need to go. Thank you.
Thank you. And so we're on track with the other goals. Next slide. We did, of course, this last year, and we continue to celebrate. It comes up repeatedly, but this is a significant step towards advancing our goal of creating additional high quality affordable housing, and just highlighting that we are on track with this development. It will deliver 463 residential units, partly funded by the Housing Production Fund, very deep affordability with 54% at the overall site, and accomplish some significant environmental milestones for the state and for our region, being the first net zero as well as passive house. Next slide. This slide is a little difficult to read. I'm going to try my best. to zoom in. But just to highlight, we've accomplished certain goals as it pertains to advocacy. As you know, the overall goal here was to expand housing supply in Montgomery County. A big part of that was advocacy and working with our partners locally and federally. And so there was a lot of advocacy around expanding low-income housing tax credits that was successful holistically as an industry, as well as advocating to increase allocation of tax-exempt private activity bonds. We have pushed pause right now as it pertains to advocating for automatic recycling of our private activity bonds with the state, primarily because we've been working really closely with them and there has not been the need to take that step at this particular time. Our other goals are on track, as you can see. And again, this was published in advance. Where we are slightly delayed is thinking through a concept that was pitched of potentially thinking about how we might be able to provide financing for other developments across the county, as well as advocating for changes in the QAP. And so we will be revisiting, again, items that are yellow. We'll just go into the next year.
I'm curious, this one in particular in the context of some of the previous discussion about permitting and, barriers there, I see that, we have on here advocate for changes that reduce barriers to housing and zoning and development review. I know we've got some stuff that we may be talking about at some point later that shows just like how lengthy some of these review processes are. I don't know specifically what we've advocated for here. So I'd be curious about some of that. I don't want to get into a long discussion now about it, but just to throw it out there. And also note that, we're in a moment where there is a lot of interest in both the YIMBY movement and the abundance agenda. And so it seems like a good time to kind of take advantage of that and really find ways to condense that process.
Just note, we're preparing to bring our 2026 legislative priorities to the commission in the next month or so. So that would also be a great, opportunity to go into maybe a little more detail on.
Great.
Some of these.
I'll wait till then.
Yes. And we'll also at that time spotlight the bills that were introduced. Sometimes we're advocating and or supporting bills that are in alignment with the legislative priorities versus being the drivers or the creator of them. So when we bring the legislative priorities, we'll also give some context in terms of what was introduced and what we're anticipating this next cycle. Okay, next slide. As it pertains to expanding and optimizing rental assistance, we have been working really hard on this particular goal. We were successful in hiring a housing locator, as well as hosting some very successful virtual sessions, public sessions in regards to HOTMA. Despite the fact that that was delayed, we are on track and made sure that our residents were informed. And we also received commission support to increase our payment standards. Where you do see, I will say that Action 1.33, which is Implement Inspire, we are on track, although I did just learn this week that there's another likelihood that HUD will delay the October 1st start date. Notwithstanding, we will stay the course and we're on track there. And that does entail education and information. We are working very closely with the state to implement the statewide voucher program, and we've entered into the MOU. So we're standing that up and on our way there. And as you know, the new direct rental assistance program is Bridge. And so that has really taken off in a great way and will be launched here in the near future. So both of those activities, while slightly delayed, are making great progress. Next slide. We also were awarded 8 additional incremental housing choice vouchers, as well as we're getting ready to launch the voucher program that I just mentioned that will provide additional 80 vouchers, as well as the bridge program that will start with 10 households and expand as we continue the program. Next slide. I'll pause before I move on to our next goal that focuses more on resident services to check to see if there are any questions.
How is the bridge program funded?
The bridge program is funded, as you may recall, Commissioner, when we've presented recommendations to the commission as it pertains to alternative placements, we have worked with the county to allow us to use the interest from those alternative placements to fund this subsidy program.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know this is near and dear to Ken's heart.
Yes. All right. And so here we are, goal 2. This is focused really on our residents and enhancing the lives we touch through partnerships and supportive services. There are 4 sub-goals here: enhancing our resident services programs, enhancing partnerships with government and nonprofit partners, enhancing wealth creation and home ownership programs, as well as enhancing opportunities for applicants on our wait list. Next slide. We are making great progress. We're close to 70% in terms of advancing the 9 action goals that we had identified in 25. And you see that we have a very robust plan ahead of us for FY26. So a lot of work has been taking place to gear up for these 20 actions. Next slide. This allows a quick snapshot. As you can see, again, there's a lot of purple here. Those are the goals that we will be focused on this upcoming year. But in terms of the things we have been able to accomplish, we published a new customer resource guide, which has been a tool that was used not just from us, but also our partners across the county. There's a resource section on our website. We had updated our HOC reception areas to provide more information on our services. As well as we've expanded our language interpretation and translation services. And we are working with the RAB, the one goal that says some delay, in terms of thinking about how they would like to engage with the public. Next slide. Our total engagements are continuing to increase quarter over quarter and year over year, which means that we're doing good as it pertains to getting the word out as well as making our impact. Next slide. And getting into enhancing partnerships with government and nonprofit partners. This will be an area of focus for us all. As you know, we have launched a partner with HOC campaign. That's something we will be focusing in on. We did develop our scattered sites disposition program. We're on track there. We're looking at other programs in terms of creating affordable home ownership. And we are currently working on developing an interest buy down program that will go into the next year. And then you see these other items that will advance into FY26. Next slide. I do want to spotlight both of these are snapshots from pages on our websites and campaigns that are currently underway. We have a very robust partner with HOC campaign. We're looking for new partners in every way. And this site allows for individuals and organizations to think about how they may be able to work with us, as well as our HOC Volunteer Corp. And the goal here as we move into next year is to get a robust group of volunteers that we can leverage for support across our programs and for our residents. Next slide. In terms of advancing our goal of wealth creation and home ownership, again, you see here some of the goals that were reflected in the other slides, so I don't think I need to repeat them. It's just a closer look at what's coming up next. I will say that there will be additional focus on how we can leverage our home ownership voucher program for home ownership opportunities. So expect to hear more about that. Next slide. We are also, of course, constantly looking at how we can advance support for our individuals on the waiting list. We do have active work underway with Yardi in terms of enhancing our wait list and hope to present some new options to the commission and to the public in the next few months. Next slide. And I will say that our wait list continues to grow. As you can see, it's grown over quarter, and there are about 10 new applications per day. I'll pause and ask if there are any questions related to the resident-related goals. If not, I will move on to the last goal here, which is excel as a world-class organization. Next slide. There are 3 sub-goals: excel as a world-class place to work, excel by providing world-class customer service, and excelling through modern technology and data systems. Next slide. Here, we have knocked it out the park. We believe that we've done great work to demonstrate our commitment towards this goal. We have 90% progress of the 19 items that were identified, and we have a robust plan for FY26, of which we already have 51% of those goals underway. Next slide. You see that we've spotlighted some of the main accomplishments that we were able to achieve, including revamping our talent acquisition strategy, our communications campaign, and our retention strategy, as well as many other tasks that are on track. In fact, for example, you'll see while there is a reference to some delay for our talent development program, we're very close to completing that task. It's just the date is not exactly aligned with what we initially envisioned. Next slide. We do have success to point to. There were 58 new hires in FY25. Our current vacancy rate is 8%, which is the lowest it has been. And again, our focus is really to continue to see that number go down. Our talent retention led to a 6% year-over-year reduction as it pertains to turnover. Next slide. In terms of customer service, this is really where we started even before the dashboard was launched. After our public engagements and hearing directly from our customers, jumped right in to try to address some of the concerns we heard. Streamlining our phone systems to one phone number, increasing our digital presence that includes our website, etc. We began to collect more feedback in terms of surveys, et cetera, that's reported out here to the commission. We are on track with our other tasks in terms of customer service, and we are really far along with, I think there's only 1 or 2 more internal sessions in terms of updating our overall staff on our brand policies and how we show up as a brand and how we present ourselves in materials and in our engagements. Next slide. In terms of focusing on customer service, there's a lot of work underway there. This was an area of focus. Our SOPs have been created. This is a picture of our new office that really does get a lot of visitors in Deerwood, connected to the Laureate. But everything from the experience when you walk in, the average customer is not in any of our sites for more than 5 minutes when they come to visit us, and our customer service feedback has been very positive. Next slide. This is just a snapshot in terms of what we've been able to do to address our backlog that we once had with maintenance work orders. We are on track with our addressing emergency work orders within 1 day. This data in terms of addressing high priority work orders within 5 days suggests that we were doing that at a 43% rate, but I can share that even as of last week, most of our high priority work orders were addressed within 3 days. So now that we have been able to complete and clear out our backlog, we are now streaming and on track with our goals, and all of our work orders are addressed within 15 days. Next slide. In terms of customer service improving, again, this reflects out, we get more and more calls. We're nearing 20,000 calls in quarter 4 of FY25. However, the experience has been positive, and you see that at least 80% rate their experience is excellent. We are going to focus in on that 7% that reflected as poor and really try to get an understanding of where we can have improvement there. Next slide. We have a lot of technology underway. We have data dashboards, new tools that we're rolling out. There's a new board management software that came out, new maintenance software, just a lot that we're doing to try to modernize and streamline our processes. And there are some areas where there's some delay, primarily because we're making sure we take all the steps in terms of project management and beta testing, even doing focus groups when necessary before rolling out technology. And so you'll see that those are areas that we will be continuing into the next fiscal year. I am almost there. I am on my last slide. And there are 3 brand new systems that are being rolled out to the staff. Again, as we roll these software tools out, that includes training, that includes modernizing, streamlining, and pulse checking to see, did this do what we thought it would in terms of effectiveness? And with that, I will turn to this last slide and say thank you. And again, really thank you to the HOC team who has put forth a tremendous effort in advancing this plan over this last year. And I open for any questions.
Any questions?
I think it's super impressive what you've all done. It really is super.
Yeah, I was just going to comment. I mean, it took you a while to get through because it's a very comprehensive and ambitious plan, and we have accomplished a lot in the last year. And so, yes, echo the congratulations. And I think, the fact that we haven't accomplished everything, but we should have stretch goals in there. So we're going to keep pushing and accomplishing even more. So really appreciate all the work of the staff on this, and looking forward to even more this year.
Thank you.
Our trade organizations are always looking for subjects for workshops at their different convenings. And we really want to put together one talking about strategic planning and implementation. But I don't think there are many agencies like ours that are doing as well as we are doing in both the design and implementation of our implementation plan. Most places don't even have an implementation plan. And the fact that we're doing what we're doing in the dashboard, I think is just really very, very powerful way to inform and keep us as commissioners, as always, what's going on? Well, you can go right on the dashboard and figure out what's going on. Okay. And you all can figure out which one of us is doing that. So, it's important, good tool, and I want to just say thank you all for that. Any other comments, questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, it's not on the agenda, but I do want to just quickly spotlight and ask the team to show another, it's only a few slides here, but I felt it would be I could not go through this meeting without acknowledging some of the activities that took place this summer. And if we did not do it right now, it would be November that I'm telling you about back to school. So there's just a handful of slides. Next slide. Wanted to just spotlight and lift up that we have done a lot here this summer. We had a wonderful evening in Bloom. I think you see Commissioner Weech is spotlighted in the middle here, but I understand that no one broke a hip, but they had a good time. And so this was a fun event. And there's also, there's a senior prom and a networking event that happens every year, and our seniors love it. So I wanted to spotlight that. Next slide. I also wanted to just lift up the team overall in terms of our helping our communities. We have identified 20 properties and we are hitting them one by one. And these are just wonderful photos that support and show the great work that's taken place. And so this is spotlighting not only the events, but our partners, Montgomery County Police Department, as you'll see in that bottom slide of District 6, they're phenomenal. And they constantly support us as well at Cider Mill. But we've definitely created a great program, and I wanted to lift up the team that's doing this. Next slide. This is Cider Mill, and this event was tremendously successful. And I understand that there was close to 700 participants that came out to this event. So again, another way that, and this was held by HOC for HOC. So just wonderful, again, wanting to acknowledge and thank the teams that have been leading this effort. We have a wonderful counselor, Luis, at Cider Mill, and I also want to thank the county council who supported our request for an additional counselor at that site. Next slide. We had a great back to school giveaway that took place on August 16th. I know Chair Priest, you were there. I think I missed another commissioner. Commissioner Weech, were you there as well? We might have been in passing, but definitely hundreds and hundreds of backpacks. We had vendors cutting hair. It was really a wonderful event that was very well attended. And just again, wanting to uplift and thank the team for working in conjunction actually with Montgomery County Department of Rec on this particular event. Next slide. And then, of course, we had our wonderful homeownership partnership that occurred on August 28th. This is the partnership that this board approved with Habitat. We increased our initial estimate of 10 properties to 20, and with the support of the commission, we're able to advance a homeownership opportunity for 20 families. And this is just a reflection of that event, which was very well supported and attended by our all of our commissioners. Quite frankly, I think just about everyone was there, as well as, of course, many of our elected officials. Next slide. And with that, I just wanted to say thank you, and thank you, of course, to our partners on our team.
I would say to you that at the back to school STEM event, that was really very powerful. I was amazed to watch young children between the ages of 3 and 8 who were learning how to do coding and were moving drones around. And so the instructor said, "Wait, Mr. Priest, don't you want to come and do that?" I said, "No, I will not be upstaged by a 3-year-old. Okay, I ain't doing it." But it was very impressive to see how many kids were really interested in doing it. It's a very powerful learning, and they're doing this all year long. So it's really, yeah.
Thank you. All right, I turn it back to you, Chair Priest.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for the presentation. I think we bypassed report from the Investment Advisory Board. So
good afternoon, Commissioners, President Andrews, staff, and members of the public. For the record, my name is Adam Pinchuk, President of the Resident Advisory Board. Today, I will be sharing updates on our last meeting in July. President Andrews attended that meeting and gave some introductory remarks about the new program called HOC Bridge. She then passed on the presentation to Ken Silverman, who first briefed the board about the creation of a new preference to the administrative plan for tenants who currently hold an emergency housing voucher. The change to the plan will provide these households with a preference to transition to a housing choice voucher so they don't experience an interruption in their housing as their emergency vouchers expire. Members of the board enthusiastically endorse this new preference. Next, Ken Silverman discussed the HOC Bridge program in some detail, which will utilize county funds to provide direct subsidies to higher income households and free up those federal vouchers to be reissued to lower income households on the waiting list. The board members were all very interested in this innovative program and invited Ken to return to give us updates as the program is rolled out. I also need to inform the commissioners that 2 current members, Alethea Fortune and Trish Fortune, have stepped down for personal reasons, and we thank them for their service on the board. Before I wrap up, I want to note that this will be the final year for this year's ARAB 3-year term, and we look forward to an energetic final year on the board. Our next board meeting will be September 15th. Thank you for your time. Does anyone have any comments or questions?
Any questions? No, we want to thank you all for the service, and we look forward to continuing this relationship that we've been building for the last couple of years. So thank you.
We do.
With that, we will now move into a portion of the agenda for Commissioner Exchange. Any items for Commissioner Exchange? Let me just mention a couple of things. One, I mentioned earlier about the BizNow conference on the future of Montgomery County, which was very well attended, and it was a good event. Especially gave us a chance to showcase what we've been doing in relationship to the Housing Production Fund and the Preservation Fund, and talking with people from the Green Bank. Very interesting. There's a different perspective about the lenses from the private side versus that from the public side, but both of us work together collaboratively to try to achieve the county's housing development goals. So with that, I think it's good. I also want to just mention, just recently, I was in the paper the last few days about Governor Westmore's effort to try to see what he could do to begin to reduce some of the hurdles to new housing. And a lot of that deals with really trying to expedite the review process. And he wants to make it a statewide effort to try to make sure that we can do that. So we'll see how that works out. And certainly we will be a part of that. And then the last thing I'll mention is about, all of you all know, because the president sent out the notice about our participation in the National Association of Counties Housing Solutions and Zoning Task Force. And I think that was hopefully they'll produce some interesting outcomes, ways that we can find to begin to address this housing shortage problem. So I want to mention those few things. Commissioners, I will certainly thank you all for the information that you all have been exchanging in terms of just news articles about affordable housing. So continue to encourage you to do that. So if there's nothing else with that, I'll move to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes of July 9th, both for our open and closed session. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. Carried unanimously. We'll now move into the committee reports and recommendations for action. Our first committee report will come from the Administrative and Regulatory Committee. The chair of that committee is Linda Coombs, who is not present with us today. And so Commissioner Paul Weech will, in fact, take us through that portion of the Administrative and Regulatory Committee actions.
Great. So there are three things on the agenda today that are coming from the committee that were reviewed and recommended to the full board, but we will turn it over to Chelsea to go through the first one for us.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, this item did come before ARC. This is a recommendation from our GC General Counsel in regards to proposed amendments to your bylaws. And there was robust discussion as well as an opportunity to go step by step in terms of what those recommendations were. I will turn it over to Asha Memon, our General Counsel, to provide you with a high-level overview. But we did receive support and feedback from the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea. For the record, my name is Asha Memon. I'm the Senior Vice President of Legal Affairs and General Counsel. Today, we'll go over the proposed amendments to HOC's bylaws. Please go to slide 3. The Office of the General Counsel completed a comprehensive review of HOC's bylaws. The updates ensure that HOC is conforming to applicable laws and aligning with best practices. They also modernize how the Commission functions and clarifies how the Commission operates. Some of the updates are slight modifications, while others are entire rewrites or new additions. I'm going to go through each article and explain the updates and give it a little bit more context for the changes. Please don't hesitate to interrupt me during the presentation if you have any questions. Next slide. Article 1 is an overview of the Commission. We added new sections for powers, purpose, office location, committees, and fiscal year. Powers explain the Commission's authority, which is specified in the Maryland Code. Purpose explains HOC's mission, which is based on HOC's strategic plan. The office section includes HOC's new HQ address, which will be effective upon the official move-in date. Committees explain how HOC can establish new committees, and the fiscal year clarifies that HOC's fiscal year begins July 1. Next slide. Article 2 is an entirely new article. It explains how commissioners are appointed, their term, how they can resign, their compensation, how they can be removed, and clarifies that they are subject to the Montgomery County Ethics Law. Next slide.
Compensation or lack thereof.
That's right.
Yeah.
Article 3 discusses the Commission's officers. There's going to be one modification and 3 new sections in this article. The modification is in Section 5, which discusses the role of the Secretary Treasurer. We clarified that the Secretary Treasurer's responsibilities, what those are, and that the President fills this role as part of their job duties. We also clarified that the Secretary Treasurer is a non-voting member of the Commission. The first addition is in Section 9, which is removal of officers. This section provides a mechanism for commissioners to remove an officer for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or misconduct. To remove an officer, the Commission has to convene a meeting to vote on the removal. The affected officer has to receive at least 5 days advance notice of the meeting and must be removed by a supermajority vote. The slide explains what a supermajority vote means, but for an example, if you have a 7-commissioner quorum, you would need 5 votes to approve the removal. Next slide. The second addition to the officers article is really just a clarification. We added Section 10, which is additional personnel president/executive director. This section simply clarifies the president's duties. The final addition is Section 12, emergency authorization. This section gives the chair the authority to suspend the bylaws and adopt emergency guidelines to enable the commission to conduct essential business in the event of a major emergency. Next slide. The next 3 slides discuss changes related to meetings. For annual meetings, we added that the chair can change the date of the annual meeting after giving 2 days prior written notice to the commissioners, and that officers are elected at the annual meeting. We also removed the requirement that 4 commissioners must be physically present. For regular meetings, we added that the chair or president can forego a monthly meeting after giving the commissioners 24 hours prior notice. And for special meetings, we removed the ratification requirement. Next slide. For emergency meetings, we removed the ratification requirement and that at least 4 commissioners must approve an action. We added that the chair must attempt to contact each commissioner before an emergency meeting and provide as much notice as possible. We clarified that commissioners can participate in meetings virtually, and we removed that commissioners can deliberate and approve a matter after a meeting ends and added that commissioners cannot vote by proxy. Next slide. Finally, we added that the commission can adopt rules to allow for the public to address the commission and how committee meetings are conducted. Next slide. Article 5 is the standards of conduct. This is a new article which provides that commissioners must adhere to applicable laws, engage with each other and staff respectfully, and conduct themselves appropriately. This article also adds a mechanism to remove commissioners from the commission if they fail to adhere to the bylaws. To remove a commissioner, any commissioner can request that the chair convene a meeting to vote on the removal. The affected commissioner must receive notice at least 5 days in advance of the meeting. The removal must be approved by supermajority vote, which is the same standard we discussed for the removal of officers. If the commission approves the removal, the chair presents the recommendation to the county executive and county council, and the removal won't be effective until approved by the county executive. In the event that the commission wants to remove the chair, the vice chair will complete the steps I just discussed. Next slide. There are no changes to Article 6, which discusses how to amend the bylaws. Article 7 is a total rewrite and speaks to the agency's duty to indemnify a commissioner in the event that they're named in a lawsuit. The agency will indemnify a commissioner against any liability they incur by reason of their position on the commission, if the commission acted in the good faith and in the manner that they believed it to be in the best interests of the commission. If served with a lawsuit, the commission must request indemnification by providing the general counsel with written notice within 7 days of being served, and the general counsel will determine whether indemnification is permitted under the bylaws. Commissioners must cooperate in the defense of the claim. If a commissioner does not cooperate, or if they knowingly misrepresent material facts, the agency can terminate representation. Next slide.
There's officers and directors insurance.
Yeah, we do. The agency or its insurance provider selects the attorney and has full control of the defense. The agency is not obligated to identify a commissioner who fails to abide by the bylaws or who is adjudged to be guilty of a criminal offense, liable for fraud, gross negligence, willful misconduct, malice, bad faith, self-dealing, recklessness, or liable to the commission for damages. Next slide. This concludes the presentation. Are there any questions?
Aisha, I have one, and that is that I understand that Commissioner Miller had proposed some amendments to the bylaws and couldn't be here today.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was anticipating that really his proposed changes were going to be put before us today on the agenda. And I'm just wondering, maybe on a broader, more procedural thing, in the future, if a commissioner can't be present to present an amendment, how should that process work?
Well, that did occur for the procurement thing recently. I don't know if that was communicated that he had that desire here.
Yeah, I spoke to Commissioner Miller about that. There were two items that he and I talked about in discussions with you about them. I'm trying to remember what they were because he was in. Do you remember what they were?
I do. Yeah. He had a question back for Article 1 because we said that HOC's mission includes, providing for low and moderate income individuals. And he was asking if that was defined or referenced in a particular statute. We said that my answer at the time was that we don't want to be too prescriptive in what that means. And we're not looking for a particular statute because what that means depends on the program. So we are using those terms broadly on purpose. I think that the language kind of reflects what's already in HOC's mission. So in my opinion, it's appropriate as it is. His other questions. I think there was a question about the language. Right now, it says that the Secretary Treasurer shall serve as the executive director, and he thought maybe may was more appropriate. I think that there was direction that perhaps we did not want that to be vague. In fact, the president's job is to act as the Secretary Treasurer.
Yeah, and I think on that point, we talked about that. It's clear that under the bylaws that the Secretary Treasurer is in fact the president and executive director. And there's also another provision in the article somewhere that dealt with that, is in terms of if that position became vacant.
Right. So if it becomes vacant, then you obviously would choose an interim executive director. But per a recent HUD audit, they made it clear that a commissioner can't fill that role, and so the bylaws do reflect that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. But so I think with some comfort I can say that I think we addressed the issues that Jonathan had raised, and that we say we will present to the commission. So is there any discussion about any of those points?
Well,
Paul?
was there a third? There's a third issue having to do with the standards for removal of
right. There's three more. At least at the time. I mean, I can't speak to what his opinion is now because I did have a personal conversation with him, so I don't know if he has changed his mind. But he thought that the removal of officers for inefficiency was too vague. I shared with him, and I'll share with you, that the research supports the language as is. The term inefficiency is used by Alexandria, Houston, and Seattle. The HUD sample bylaws are actually even more broad. They allow for the removal of an officer with or without cause. So in my opinion, inefficiency, I think, is self-explanatory and not too vague, but I leave it for the commission to express their opinion.
Is there any sentiment from the standpoint of the commissioners about the use of the word inefficiency? Or you wanted to change it or modify it in some way? The time to do it is now. Okay.
Okay. He also wanted to clarify that the removal of officers does not apply to the Secretary Treasurer, and that is correct. You would not remove the Secretary Treasurer in the same way you would another officer, because that would be, in fact, terminating the president. I don't mind adding language to clarify that if that's the concern.
Yes, I think it should be.
Okay. 1 second.
Because removal of the Secretary of Treasury is not a separate action from that of removing the president and executive director, because that person serves as the Secretary of Treasury.
The last thing is in the standards of conduct, the way that you would remove a commissioner is that if they fail to adhere to the bylaws, and he thought this was too broad. In my opinion, I think it encompasses everything you would want, because in your bylaws, you have your duty to adhere to the various laws that apply to the commission specifically, like the Montgomery County Ethics Law, Open Meetings Act, the Public Information Act, and then you also have the general standards for an officer. So in my opinion, I do think it's sufficient. I think he he didn't necessarily have a alternative. He just shared that he thought that language was a little broad.
And I think we did not have an extensive conversation about this, but I think that his thinking behind that issue for the removal of any one of us was the inadvertent, whether there was a standard of due diligence or some other standard that would avoid someone being removed for an inadvertent violation of one of the bylaws or the Open Meetings Act.
Yeah.
The
I think
access
that
code versus a willful violation of those standards.
Right. So I think the comfort I tried to provide to him is that there's numerous backstops there, right? One, you have the supermajority vote amongst yourselves that you are very unlikely to ding somebody for you're supposed to give 24 hours notice and you give 23 hours notice. I don't think that the commission in general would take that step. And even if you did, the removal is not effective until approved by the county executive. And again, I don't think the county executive is looking for that level of minor transgressions. So, I hear the edge case scenario. I just think it's extremely unlikely. And I also shared that I don't think you want intent to be your standard either, because you also have to take into account situations of negligence or gross negligence, which might not be intent, but is still showing a callous disregard for duties.
Yeah. There were two other, he also has a point about the being able to amend the agenda. And we made it very clear that any commissioner, because I always start out by saying, is there any item on the agenda that should be removed, or do we accept the agenda? So any commissioner can do that. It's not the chair who does that. And he also asked a question about requesting a roll call vote. On a roll call vote, any commissioner can ask for a roll call vote. It doesn't have to come from the chair.
So both of those are probably just covered by the rules of procedure.
Yeah. And that's laid out in the bylaw.
No, but the Roberts Rules of Procedure are referenced as the way commission meetings are conducted. Yes.
So I think it's all covered. Okay.
Okay, so
Yeah,
other
thank you.
than that one change about clarifying the secretary treasurer, and I'll make that change to the bylaws. So in terms of the resolution, right now there is a version that's attached. And I would ask that when you approve the resolution, just with that small amendment, that way I can make that amendment and we can finalize.
And I'll just tell my fellow commissioner standing in for our committee chair that I remember we had a conversation about emergency situations where the committee has to be convened. And it looks like we added some language that just the chair is urged to make every effort to make sure we know that emergency meetings coming up and that the commissioners have an opportunity to be involved in whatever decisions need to come out of that. And then there were a couple other changes we proposed, but in general, the committee is prepared to support the new bylaws.
This item, which is resolution number 25-47. Could I get a motion to approve the resolution subject to the amended language? You get a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
It's been probably moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Nay. The matter carries. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Right. So for the next item, we are going to bring before the commission a change in the administrative document,
Yes.
anyways, administrative plan.
The administrative plan.
And I'll turn it over to our president to introduce the topic.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, this is an item that we have gone through multiple iterations of disclosing and explaining. The ARC committee is where we gave a full briefing, and that information can be located online for those who are just tuning in. We also, as you heard earlier from the RAB president, briefed the RAB on this item, and we had a public hearing that occurred today. There's no comments or questions that were raised by the public in regards to these amendments. Ultimately, the goal here is to ensure that programs that have disruption and funding do not impact people's ability to provide and have housing subsidized in our programs. And so primarily we're referring to the emergency housing voucher program that is winding down. And we are taking steps. This is one step. We will have to go to HUD once we get approval from the commission to ultimately support transitioning those families over to the voucher program. And the other relates to the creative program that we're advancing with our strategic plan, the Bridge program, and allowing those individuals, if funding and or other unforeseen circumstances arise, to transition back to the voucher program. Again, we went through this at the ARC committee meeting, and there was support to advance it. I will turn it over to Ken Silverman, our Vice President of Government Affairs.
Thank you, President Andrews. So pretty thorough explanation. And just going to focus on this executive summary there. We did include the rest of the material that we went through with ARC, which has sort of some additional background about the emergency housing voucher program and other elements, as well as the sort of precise language we're proposing. And so can refer to that if there's any questions or people would like to see it. But in the interest of time, just wanted to really summarize. This is creating a new preference for our housing choice voucher waitlist in our administrative plan. That preference would create a process that for a household that receives a certification from HOC staff that they are enrolled in a HOC administered rental assistance program in good standing, and that they need to transition from that program to the housing choice voucher program because of a change in the funding or other hardship. And it would apply to two specific programs, the emergency housing voucher program, which, as Chelsea mentioned, HUD has announced they will not have provide funding for after calendar year 2026. They have issued a public notice providing guidance that, you know, their proposal for how PHAs deal with that is to create a preference for in their administrative plan and allow those families to enter the housing choice voucher program. And then the other program would be HOC Bridge, where we would be asking families with an existing voucher to voluntarily let go of let go of that voucher, move to this locally funded program, allowing HOC to reissue the voucher to another family on the waiting list. And so, staff feels it's appropriate to provide them this kind of backstop if, we're not able to fund that program or their individual circumstances change in such a way that they need to be, prioritized for readmission. So I'm going to pause and see, if there's any questions or if you'd like me to sort of provide any more detail that was in the presentation.
I'm very glad that we're, addressing the issue around the emergency housing vouchers and, not just that HUD is not going to no longer fund them, but that the funding that was available for them is running out sooner than anticipated. I guess I'm wondering on this point, I think we mentioned earlier that we have 88 active voucher holders in that program. Is this sufficient? Will there be space for all 88 if all 88 remain?
Yes. Based on our current utilization, and once we, of course, get support from the commission today, we'll take steps to ensure that that we're able to do this transition smoothly based on recidivism as well as our timeline for moving people over.
Good.
Yes.
Great. It'll certainly help with our utilization rate, but not in the way we would prefer.
Correct.
So.
Okay. Then if we can skip to the last slide, I think it's slide 11. So there's a resolution before the commission that would authorize staff to make this change to our administrative plan. We would respectfully request that the commission consider approving that resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Been probably moved and seconded to approve resolution 25-48, adopting new preference standards for the rental assistance program. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. So ordered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the final topic coming from our committee, Mr. Chair, is a proposal to create a new branding for the Housing Opportunity Commission scattered site housing portfolio. And I will turn it over to President Andrews to introduce the topic.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners, as you know, we have nearly 1,800 scattered sites across this county over the 500 square mile radius. And we have single family homes. We have townhomes, we have condos, we have small communities. And right now we refer to them as scattered sites. We are looking for a way to enhance the way that we market our sites to our wait list, to the individuals who are currently in our sites, being able to brand and create a sense of home and connection to HOC and our resources, and ultimately elevate that portfolio more holistically with a strategy around branding. Leading this effort is our Vice President of Public Affairs and Communications, Tia Blunt, and Vice President Blunt will provide you with this overview. And I will say that the ARC committee did support and hear the full presentation. So Ms. Blunt will give a condensed version as we get to the ultimate recommendation.
Thank you, President Andrews. For the record, my name is Tia Blunt. I serve as Vice President of Public Affairs and Communications. And today we're coming before the Commission for approval of the selection of an independent brand for our scattered site portfolio. And so following a series of capital improvements and other investments that have been made in our scattered site, we're looking to reposition, market, and begin renting those vacant units, which are across the county. And so to do so, we really feel strongly about the creation of an independent brand, one that really showcases them as a distinct collection of those different product types that President Andrews talked about within the HOC managed and owned portfolio. Next slide. This just shows the fact that this vintage portfolio, which was built between 1940 and 2010, that was purchased over 5 decades ago, is really scattered throughout the county in certain areas. But beyond that concentration, there's also just a wide range in affluent communities across the county, offering families real geographical choice. Next slide. This just talks about what President Andrews already pointed out, that we have a range of townhomes, single family homes, as well as condominiums, with townhomes representing nearly 70% of that portfolio of the 1727. Next slide. And so the idea is that as we begin to deploy these different product types across the region, we're looking to reposition and market those assets and really adopt this brand that will really showcase our ability to provide this high quality, geographically dispersed product type for larger families. And more importantly, this new brand will assist the agency in enhancing our leasing efforts, right? By modernizing the way that we reach prospective folks to actually connect them to those vacancies. And this is particularly important because we don't have a central office for folks to visit for leasing these disparate units. And so we need internet, mobile presence, we need collateral, and we need an extensive marketing campaign, that does not rely solely on wait lists, but being able to go more broad to the public to enhance that lead generation. Skip to slide 8. And then just by way of history, we did that we engaged with Meyer Warner to help us with the brand development process. I will not go through all of the slides in terms of that process, but in that was a full market analysis. They looked at industry trends in both naming as well as some things that we can do to creatively manage and market the portfolio. We developed a powerful brand vision, powerful opportunities to look at how we map the audiences that may be potential renters for those properties, looking at some of their typical needs and priorities, as well as some of the psychographical insights and common lifestyle preferences. That brand positioning really did come with a full brand purpose, promise, values, et cetera, all of which really designed, again, to begin thinking about the way in which we want to reflect that purpose, promise, value, et cetera, notwithstanding the challenge of marketing these individual homes that are scattered across the county to multiple in a range of income levels without evoking stigma that is associated with living in low income or affordable housing, but rather selling these neighborhoods amenities and quality. And so I'm going to advance to slide 17 because I think it is important that every time that we've come to the commission, we have talked about this by way of naming guidelines. And so this is not while most are familiar with the guidelines that are presented here, this is not an immediate departure from those guidelines, but one where we really needed to look at both an independent brand, but also keep the spirit of these guidelines in terms of having a positive image that we felt would stand the test of time, one that's memorable, one that has a regard for the fact that these properties are scattered across the county, and one that really looks to celebrate the places and people that make up the rich history of this community. And so with that, I'm going to advance to slide 8, which is the first option that's coming before the commission, the name Tapestry Collection. And so tapestry is a woven fabric featuring intricate designs. As a metaphor, tapestry conveys a complex combination of or interwoven collection of parts, as in the rich tapestry of life. This conveys warmth, texture, storytelling, the rich colors and woven surfaces. And so the idea of tapestry collection is that communities are strongest when woven together with intention, inclusion, and care. So that was one concept that came forward. The second name option, which the staff as well as ARC advanced, next slide, is mosaic homes. The idea of a mosaic being a picture or pattern that's made up of assembling all of these disparate pieces, whether that's stone or glass or other material. Metaphorically, this is a diverse collection of things, people, or places, and very similar to our scattered site portfolio, really is a way to bring all of those scattered pieces together in a very meaningful way, like the city's complex cultural mosaic. And sort of featured here on the right, which I thought was really interesting, something that I did not know about the HOC history, is that we have worked with residents in the past to really look at how they see how they've demonstrated in art rich mosaics that communicate their interests in the future and how they see their communities and what they aspire to in the future. And so that was another nod to the inspiration that really kind of supported this name. And so mosaic homes, we borrow a powerful quote from Jim Ricardo: we become not a melting pot, but a beautiful mosaic, different people, different beliefs, different yearnings, different hopes, different dreams. And so mosaic homes is one of the recommendations that the ARC has also supported. Next slide. There were also, next slide, 2 other options that were placed on the table. One, Canopy Collection, and the other, Heartstone Homes, that didn't get as much support as the other 2, which we have provided to the commission today. And so I will go to the next slide. And so with the support of the ARC and the staff recommendation, we would like the commission to accept the approval of Mosaic Homes as the independent brand for HOC scattered site, and also recommend that the commission authorize President Andrews to take any actions which are necessary and proper to carry out the actions completed therein. Any questions?
Any questions?
I have a few. I have no objection to the idea of not referring to scattered sites anymore. I will admit I'm not crazy about any of these names. I sort of liked, the reference to neighborhoods that was in a comparison to other, I like neighborhood homes. Seems more descriptive or accurate to me for our purposes. But I am trying to understand some of the purpose of this. I guess, one thing, branding, marketing is not just a name change. So I am trying to understand how this fits in with any larger efforts to market these homes. I'm trying to understand our needs for marketing them. I mean, we saw before that our wait list has gone way up. I don't know what the breakdown is among market rate units that we have in these scattered site, or properties. So I don't know how much we are, where are we really advertising these in places elsewhere? Like in, there's references to some of the, whether it's Google or Zillow. There was talk of the briefing package had discussions about expectations, including concierge services, which I'm assuming that's not something we're doing. So I don't even know what this all means really in terms of our efforts.
Sure. Taking a couple steps back. In terms of our efforts to brand this portfolio, you may recall earlier a mention of our focus on improving our wait list, that system, and the ability for our residents to identify what programs and or sites they may be interested in. As it stands, identifying scattered sites in any system is really difficult. And so being able to identify a collection of potential homes as mosaic homes, and then being able to even identify further, West County mosaic homes and the so-and-so collection, being able to think through and differentiate areas and identify this portfolio in a way other than listing 1,800 homes is one of the goals here. So that's just even when you're selecting what type of program you might be interested in, what type of home you might be interested in, because people get on our wait list for individual programs, for the voucher program, for state partnership, and it doesn't allow an opportunity to just say, hey, you're actually interested in the scattered sites, which we refer to as mosaic homes. And these are the different categories of our mosaic homes. Click which ones you might be interested in. Okay, so that's that branding exercise. The other exercise you can imagine is when you move in to your new scattered site, being able to have material that might say, welcome to your mosaic home, and you're affiliated with HOC. These are our resources. These are our services, some level of branding, and or this is how you get in touch with us, or please download the app, and do that in a way that's not just a basic letter on basic HOC letterhead, but that feels like you're actually embracing a connection to HOC, but in an elevated way is one of the goals here. We are going to explore technology and how we can also leverage it in our scattered sites. Right now, the way we're doing that is thinking through bringing all of our scattered sites onto the Yardi mobile platform, so that they can pay their rent online, upload their documents online. But instead of it saying, click here for scattered sites, it would be great to say, oh, I live in mosaic homes. And so there's all these ways that this will help enhance the experience for our current residents and people on the waiting list. We have undertaken a very robust effort towards call-ups and reach outs to various people on our scattered sites waiting list. And so as we get to final, if there are certain programs where we have exhausted those lists, and where we're going to do a mass blast out to the wait list to say, last effort, are there any other, after reaching everybody on the list, is there anyone else that meets this criteria for this type of home? We would identify a mosaic home is available at so-and-so. If and or we get to a point where we have exhausted, where you do not meet the income criteria, cannot, and all of the people on our list have different incomes, and each of our scattered sites has a very different program. So it is a very difficult portfolio to manage. But if we get to a point where we have either market rate units or certain scattered sites where there are no matches in our wait list, and we have to go external with advertising that, we would obviously do that with a
Are you
level.
talking about just from market rate, or what it like?
So there
where
might- we
would
have
be
market-
going external for?
So let's say we want to publicly advertise affordable scattered sites that we have available that no one is interested in on our waiting list after multiple attempts to the public on Zillow. You would be able to identify this site as a mosaic home, not necessarily a HOC home, but that it has a certain income criteria, identify what that income criteria is, and to allow us to obtain applications for that particular site that way as well. And so it's really a way, thinking about the people who are currently there, thinking about revamping our wait list, and thinking about when we get to a point, and there are definitely certain programs and criteria that our wait list may be exhausted, where we'll have to take those next steps. And if we do that, wanting to do that in a way that's not just identifying HOC in the public venue by way of Zillow, for example. Instead, it would be the Mosaic Collection, and it would be a home, but it would indicate that there are certain income criteria, or contact property management to get more details. So just thinking through other ways that we would leverage the branding exercise. And there are many, and it starts really with the people who are there and the people on our waiting list.
I mean, I can see, something like Mosaic Homes maybe being good for if we do have to go external. For internal, like on our wait list, to me, neighborhood homes, like that would make clear a little bit more.
Mm-hmm. Well, there will be differentiation. It won't, and Tia, Ms. Blunt, please feel free to weigh in. But there has been thoughts. There are thoughts about Mosaic Homes at Annandale. I'm just saying. We would identify. We've used that as the tag, as the upfront name, but then there'd be a tag name that identify some location or where it may be located. So that's how we will flex the
do
brand.
Folks on the waiting list recognize that these are, not part of multi-family properties, generally?
Right. So when you go, what we're trying to establish, and the commission will definitely hear a lot more about this because there will be a full public communication campaign and having to come before the commission to preview before we move forward. But our goal is to create a wait list that allows individuals to identify what type of property they may be interested in, what part of the county they may be interested in, understand the program requirements, which are varied, as well as ultimate, and then that would allow us to better facilitate our overall wait list. So yes.
Right. Go ahead. No, well, again, I don't object to some kind of name change. I was trying to understand more of the context and that we're not doing just a name change here, because some of the briefing materials to me just seemed a little wild in terms of what I thought, in terms of our properties, these are, I'm going to use the term scattered sites. So they're not necessarily part of, they're part of the broader HOC community, I suppose you can say, but they're not necessarily like, when you're in a community within your neighborhood, it's a little different. So trying to make those connections, as some of the materials were suggesting, seemed a little strange. It just felt a little off to me. Like I said, I probably prefer the name something like neighborhood homes, but I understand there may be a difference between if we are having to go outside of our wait list, then maybe that's, there's more appeal in something like Mosaic. I guess I'll the only other thing I'll just note is that, one of the things I remember about my marketing and branding class in business school was you can do all the branding you want. The product ultimately still has to be a good product. And I'm not suggesting that we don't have a good product, but that's where I want our focus to be, is on making sure that, we've got the best product available. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, and I listened to the presentation that was made about this on YouTube. And the idea, for me, I looked at Mosaic Collection as being sort of like the overall arching of a brand. And that brand signified something. It said, if you move into a Mosaic house, you're going to get this, and this, okay? And underneath that, there were subcategories, like you may be Mosaic single family, you may be Mosaic townhouse, you may be Mosaic Montgomery Village, you may be, so the broader umbrella was just the brand. And I can say from a previous life, I had scattered sites in a portfolio, and I named them, gave them a name. And it was amazing to me how everybody wanted to live in Miller homes, because everybody thought those were our best properties, wanted to be there. And so if it is just not a name, but a real product brand, it says, I'm going to really be getting something special, then that's a good thing, okay? And that means we've got to then move to a point where living in a Mosaic homes means something. It is something I'm proud of. I live in Mosaic, Montgomery. I felt really good when we all went to the Habitat for Humanity. That was part of our scattered site portfolio that we sold off to them. And that could have been Mosaic Habitat. Okay? So there are ways to make this work, but you've got to connect more than just a name.
Correct. And so what we're bringing to the commission and where we started is the first part of this is the naming exercise, because with this comes the brand values, the brand commitment, what it is we're delivering in the market. And we do need that distinction and that independence from the HOC brand because of the way you market to a market rate unit may be very different than you market another. And so having that independent brand allows us to flex that brand in different ways and flow vacant units that are disparately placed into, or vacant units that are within the context of an existing community into that brand. And so part of this is just strictly the naming exercise. And we alluded to some of the things that's going to be part of a broader strategy, because it's not just about the name. We're actually looking at what is the service that we deliver as it relates to the customer experience. What are the reviews that we'd like people to get? What is the quality when people move in? What does that look like? And so some of the changes that we're making technologically and that President Andrews talked about really speaks to what it is that the brand will deliver on. And so I glazed through a lot of that because I didn't go through that level of detail, but that's what we're up to here. But the name is really important because from there, that's where we hinge our marketing and our larger branding efforts. And so
what share of these homes are market rate? Market rate.
I don't know that
I'd have to get back to you.
Yeah, I don't know that I have the exact number.
I don't have the exact number before me. So I'd have to get back to you.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've talked about that before, because I guess I had tried to understand the economics of it in terms of whether we have, most of these came to us through the MPDU program.
Correct.
And the extent to which I was confused why we even had any market rate units and whether we were using them in the same way we used multifamily market rate units to subsidize the more affordable units. But it didn't seem like that was necessarily the case. Paul?
Well, first of all, I just wanted to thank you for engaging the discussion. We had at the committee level, we had modest differences around the naming process too. So I appreciated your comments on that. And then I would say that the other conversation we had that I'm not sure how to resolve necessarily is that these units are in neighborhoods that have their own brands. In some cases, they're in townhouse communities that have their own brands, and how our brand kind of interacts with that. So in my HOA, for example, our community always talks about how we better engage the renters who live in our community. And three of them are HOC properties, and so how do we get them to feel like they're part of this townhouse community? They are part of this community and feel welcome and part of it. I think I came down not worrying about that too much, especially with some of the clarifications today, in that Mosaic is our branding, right? How we encourage people to look to these homes as an option or a choice when they come to HOC looking for housing opportunities. And that I'm still a little concerned, but not completely concerned, that when that renter arrives in our townhouse community, that we'll find a way to reach out to them, and they'll find a way to reach out to us and become part of the brand that is our neighborhood.
One of the reasons why I supported the name change in the committee meeting was because the scatter site makes you feel isolated. And then if you have this name change, you're a part of something, it builds community and you feel connected. And so I think part of it is just the overall experience for our residents.
I mean, like I said, I totally agree that scattered sites sounds terrible. So I don't object to a name change. These might not be ones I'm crazy about, but you're never going to please everybody on a name change.
Well, given that, can we get a motion to approve resolution 25?
The only thing I will just close with, sorry, Roy, is to, sort of what you were saying. I will look forward to seeing much more, when I say the product needs to be good, I think you're describing a lot of,
It would be great to see the welcome package that you're envisioning.
Yeah.
For us to look at. That would be a great thing for our education.
If the properties themselves have to be high quality, and then if we're talking about, whatever services or experience, I'll be interested in seeing how we're making that high quality as well.
And we definitely have to take those 4 pictures you had. And so when a person moves into a Mosaic home, they will have one of those either as a hot plate or a picture or something. So you're living in a Mosaic home, some way to brand it, okay? On the door, the back door, or somewhere. Okay. With that discussion, can I get a motion to approve resolution 25-49?
So moved.
Probably moved. Do I have a second? Probably second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposers, nay. So ordered. Welcome to Mosaic Homes.
I think it would be great to see the welcome package.
Yeah. Okay. With that concludes the work of on the agenda for the Administrative and Regulatory Committee. We will now move to the Budget, Finance, and Audit Committee that I chair. We have one item on the agenda, which is the procurement for the elevator services at Bradley Crossing Apartments. I'll turn to President Chelsea Andrews.
That is coming before you that would make its way through the M&A committee. This is not an emergency. This is a plan, capital improvement for this site, and we will provide you with an overview in terms of our ultimate recommendation for the procurement, and again, this is budgeted and I'd like to turn it over to our Vice President of Management for the participant,
Thank you, President Andrews. Good afternoon. I'm Kelly Dickerson, Vice President of Asset Management for HOC. And today we're asking the Commission to approve our recommendation to select an elevator company to complete modernization. These types of projects are essential to protecting resident safety and access and are also necessary investments in building infrastructure. So speaking to Bradley Crossing Apartments, starting here on the first slide, it's a 1940s vintage asset in Chevy Chase with one cable hoist elevator that's approximately 65 years old and functionally obsolete. In order to assure reliable and safe operation at reasonable annual costs, we recommend full replacement of the elevator system. Next slide, please. Replacement includes the new car, motor, controls, wiring, and integration into the associated building systems. Additionally, the interior of the elevator will be updated to reflect the quality expected by our residents. Next slide, please. Potomac Elevator is recommended to complete the elevator modernization at a cost of $373,166. This project is budgeted, as President said, and our replacement reserve account will fund the cost plus the 15% contingency that HOC holds of $55,975. The total cost of that project then is $429,141. There's no fiscal impact. Next slide, please. The project schedule here on the slide with milestones is included with the project completion of the work in March 2026. These will be communicated to residents in advance of the final phase of construction, during which the elevator car will be offline. Next slide, please. The staff recommends that the commission approve the selection of Potomac Elevator under IFB 2518 to perform the modernization of the sole elevator at Bradley Crossing Building 4740 and authorize the president and executive director to negotiate and execute a contract with Potomac Elevator. All pursuant to Resolution 2550 as drafted. Are there any questions I can answer?
Any questions?
No.
No questions. I would certainly want to, I welcomed you for your first appearance before our committee. So this is the first appearance as an asset manager, vice president, before the full commission.
Thank you.
So I want to
Make it too easy.
She's just warming us up. Okay. So with that, can I get a motion to approve resolution 25-50?
So moved.
Properly moved and second to approve resolution 2550. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. So ordered.
Thank you.
I wonder on items like this, if you can approve the budget, your capital budget, this is already in your capital budget for this project. If there's a way for us to, you've got a scope of work, we can approve your scope of work and we don't need to come back. You don't need to come back to us and spend a whole bunch of time on an item that's we'd never say no to.
The amount of money.
I know we're
I know it's an amount of-
undertaking our procurement policy. I'm looking at our general.
I know it's an amount of money, but we build projects with a
Yeah.
scope of, you don't come to us every time there's an item that's
Right.
over the limit, right?
Right.
Um,
Well, hold on.
Say it again?
If you could put on your mic.
One, I don't have the new procurement policy memorized yet, but
what a failure.
if I'm thinking correctly, I believe it's an awarding authority issue that, if you award a contract over the awarding authority, that she would have to come back anyway. Although the new awarding authority would be 350,000 instead of 250, so it gives you a little flexibility there.
So it's because we don't have a general contractor who's awarding subs.
That's right.
Maybe we can rethink. It takes a lot of time. You
I
have
would
people sitting
appreciate
here
it. And there's an extra month that we're not getting started on the
And
elevator.
there's an elevator that's 60, whatever, and and so if there's some way we could think about, Asha, maybe you can help us here. We have Bradley Crossing and Battery. We have a scope of work. Here's the scope of work. You can see it. We can look at it, we can say, fine, go to work. And if you break the budget, or maybe if you dip into the contingency, something like that, because we're just wasting time.
We can, thank you for that recommendation. We have not finalized the procurement policy. So that's a great idea that we can think through how we can potentially incorporate it in terms of the presentation that we present to the commission. But that definitely would streamline previously approved capital improvements. And there are many. And of course, across our 57 properties, there are elevators, there are various boilers, et
And
cetera.
who's,
Yes.
and who's going to object, right?
Right.
And so Asha, next time, maybe you can recite verbatim. the
Well, we
procurement
wouldn't get to
policy.
see Kelly. We wouldn't get to see Kelly.
To a bidding process.
But please, actually, seriously, but I appreciate you're willing to
Thank
think about it.
you.
Thank you.
Perhaps we could do a consent agenda item list and we can just list out the item and then we could have in our briefing packet the information, but we can just simply just say what the item is and then make a motion.
That's
That's it.
another suggestion as well. So we'll explore both options. Thank you.
Can I get a motion to recess the meeting in order to convene? the
Oh, well,
Development
excuse me, we
Corporation?
need a, Mr. Chair, we need a vote on 2550.
I thought so, but the agenda,
Oh, did it?
I was
I'm
told,
sorry.
we voted on
Why,
2550.
thank you.
You want us to change the
I'm
vote
here.
or no? Oh, I'm sorry.
We approved 2550.
Okay, thank you.
Can I now get a motion to recess the meeting in order to convene the Development Corporation meeting listed on the agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carries. We will now convene the Development Corporation meeting that's listed on the agenda. The development corporations are entities that are wholly controlled by HOC and own various properties. For each development corporation, the board of directors is comprised of the HOC commissioners, and the officers are the same as the officers of the commission. I am now calling the meeting of the Diamond Square Development Corporation to order. The item before the board is the approval to select an elevator company to perform the modernization of the elevators at the property owned by the corporation. I turn the presentation to our President Chelsea Andrews.
Yes, Commissioners, this is another elevator improvement that was planned, not an emergency in budget, and that went through a procurement process. I will turn it over to our Vice President of Asset Management. I think that we can actually just go to the summary and recommendations slide, and give high-level recommendation on what we are advancing here.
Will do, President. Thank you. Kelly Dickerson, Vice President of Asset Management. Please go to slide 7. There we go. Thank you. So here we would ask that the commission approve my notes here. Approve the selection of Action Elevator under IFB 2514 to perform the modernization of the elevators at Diamond Square and authorize the president and executive director to negotiate and execute a contract for $556,657 plus the contingency of 15%, all funded from the property's replacement reserves, thus no fiscal impact, pursuant to resolution number 25002 as drafted. And I have, if you have any further questions, it's a little bit different in that it's 2 instead of 1, but the rest is similar and in the packet.
I don't want to slow things down, but I think when you tell us you're taking it from the R4R, which is perfectly appropriate, if you could tell us what the net effect is on the R4R so we know if there's still substantial resources there just going forward. Otherwise, sure. I have no comment. If you
and there is money left after this project.
Yeah,
but yeah,
that's all. Thank you.
We actually might have that. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? If
Thank
not, is there a motion to approve resolution 25-002 DS? Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. With no further business to come before the corporation, this meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dated September the 10th, 2025, and to adjourn this open session to a closed session to discuss 3 topics. The first topic is a potential ground lease of real property located in Silver Spring, Maryland. Section 303 5B3 permits the consideration of acquisition of real property to be discussed in closed session. The second topic is a potential partnership for the development of properties in Chevy Chase, Maryland. And the third topic is a potential ownership partnership for the development of property located in Friendship Heights, Maryland. HOC must discuss both topics in closed session to protect private parties' confidential commercial and financial information. Section 305B13 allows these topics to be discussed in closed session. If a member of the public who is watching this meeting in real time on the YouTube wishes to object to the closed meeting, please comment in the YouTube chat box or contact HOC's General Counsel. Instructions can be found in the Open Meetings Act objection procedures, which is posted on HOC's website. Do I have a second? I'll be moving second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposers, nay. The meeting is now adjourned at 6:18 p.m.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.